And now, live from Studio One in Castlebar, it's the Jack McDonald Show.
Hello. You're very welcome along to the Jack McDonald Show. Fantastic to have you on board as always, especially I would say this weekend, because by all estimates, the experts at Met Éireann and all those other places have been out with their thermometers to say it's going to be a scorcher of a weekend. I can say from personal experience, I'm after tearing myself away from a beautiful Friday afternoon in the sun to come and put this episode together. So it looks like it's shaping up to be a fantastic weekend outside, but inside right now, I can guarantee that this episode should be just as good, because my guest this week is Hector O'Huckaghon, TV and radio star, a man who has travelled the world, been ingratiated into so many different cultures and produced some fantastic TV and radio along the way. So it's a fantastic episode with a fantastic man. We chat to Hector about horses, South America and Inish Man. Well, along with Hector, there is a man called Kevin Rowland. Many of you will be familiar with him from the annals of this program. Well, we speak to Kevin about some of the biggest stories this week, because there has been massive stories hitting the headlines, but also quite a bizarre video, not necessarily the most newsworthy, but a man whose nationality I think remains an enigma. Bizarre video. I'm sure many of you have come across it online. Well, that's all to come. But as I say, the weather is fantastic. I don't think there is a garden out in this country that isn't being given the 5-star treatment by lawnmowers that have seen better days. I myself, in the great weather and the kind of the general spirit of it, I have dusted off my football boots on a kind of a last gasp attempt to make county. Still trying. I think firstly I probably need to join a team. That would help immensely. But it is funny how quickly your abilities kind of fade, and if you give up sport for a couple of years, you go back to it with this vision in your head that you are whatever, Messi or the Gooch Cooper or someone like that, and you have to kind of slay that dragon and realize I'm certainly not that maestro that I thought I was. Maybe I never was, but I certainly am now, as I kind of hobble off the pitch in shame. Well, to review all the biggest stories of the week, I'm delighted to be joined by Connacht Telegraph's news and sport reporter, Kevin Rowland. How are things, Kevin?
Oh, very good, Jack. Thank you very much for having me on.
It's a lovely Thursday evening as we sit down to record this. The kind of evening, maybe, where you'd go for a spin. How about yourself?
I wouldn't mind, yeah. Go out. Go and get an ice cream, now 99, just drive around without a care in the world.
Yeah, but of course, you'd have to make sure your car was taxed and insured, wouldn't you?
Well, of course.
I mean, that's a criminal violation.
It's the rules of the road, Jack. You wouldn't dare get in the car without it being taxed, insured and NCT'd.
Yeah, well, there's one man who may not, possibly may not be following all of those rules. That's Mr. Stephen Donnelly. So the report has come out in the last couple of days that Health Minister Stephen Donnelly has been allegedly driving his car untaxed for 8 months. Pretty big one.
Relatively, in terms of the previous post by the Ditch, but it is quite an interesting one. A government minister, it is his wife's car, as you mentioned, but it's his primary vehicle. He's been seen, spotted driving around the beautiful county of Wicklow in it. And he is a man who people, I think it's safe to say, have
people hate him. Is the reality. I mean, if you want to be very blunt, and that's not just me speaking, that's the opinion polls. He is a very disliked minister. If you look at the Business Post recent opinion polls, they completely conclude with my own assertion. He is not a likeable guy. All throughout COVID, he could be quite pernickety, and I think just, at times Varadkar and some of those came across as really man of the people type stuff. Stephen Donnelly, at least for me, I don't think he'd assure anybody.
When you make people long for Simon Harris, you're not doing a great job.
But so this is a story. Now, it must be said, there hasn't been much backlash to it, which is often the case with reporting by the Ditch. It can take a while for it to trundle along, and sometimes it does kind of eke into newsrooms, but it's not always an instant hit. And so, as we say, it looks like that he's been driving the wife's car untaxed since sometime mid last year. And so, yeah, I suppose to be fair, with a story like this, there's not much to add, only to report it as it is told to us. So who knows? I wonder if you pulled up to a checkpoint and said, say you're not insured, but Stephen Donnelly isn't insured. I'd imagine that wouldn't get you out of bother.
Yeah, the onus would fall upon you, and I'd imagine by now Stephen Donnelly, his wife, or one of his many political aides have been into the motor tax office in Bray and have paid up right up to now.
Yeah,
so
hopefully.
It's going to be something that we're going to see a lot more of. I imagine all the politicians, TDs.
All the big... Have you ever heard those local stories, though, of people, just the stuff you could get away with in cars? I don't know, just it seemed like an infinite possibility at a certain point in time.
Oh, yeah.
People, I heard one recently of people driving drunk up to Dublin. They see the lights of a checkpoint up ahead, so they go, what do we do? What do we do? So they just get out of the car and leave it in the road. Because, you can't prove, especially at that point in time, I don't think the laws were strong enough. You can't really prove, I don't know, that wasn't me, I wasn't driving it. You come back the next day, they eat you out for a while, and then you're given the keys. So there you go. That's not advice. That is not advice.
A worse time.
Anyway, another big one, and this has particular significance to anybody who is a fan of kind of local airports and all that type of stuff. France have decided to ban domestic short-haul flights where train alternatives exist.
Yeah, I saw this one during the week. I wonder, is it something to do with the ongoing dispute the air traffic controllers have in France as well, that they've been on protest? Every time you try and book a flight now with Ryanair, they try and get you to sign up to impede the rights of French air traffic control people. I don't know. They seem to be stopping people from going on their holidays every so often, but I don't really care enough to sign a petition.
Have you ever been caught by the French?
I have never been caught by the French.
I have been caught by the French.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Talk to Joe. Do I still have that one?
1850 715 815.
That's terrible.
Hello, Joe.
Hello, good afternoon, and you're very welcome to Live Line.
Thanks, Joe. So, it was a couple of years ago. We were over in Malaga, and like that, you just get the notification on your phone, your flight is not happening tomorrow. And the French had decided to go on strike. I don't know, fair enough, go on strike the odd time, but they just seem to be on strike quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I don't know, this seems to be quite a common piece of their pay negotiation, is at a certain point in time we go on strike, whereas a strike is often a last resort in this part of the world.
I think it's something, there's a lack of arbitration within the negotiations. So yeah, they're just like, oh, boom, dropping tools.
Yeah, down tools.
But it does make sense, this proposal, and this, well, it's already been implemented, I believe. 2.5 hours. They have very quick
trains are horrible.
Trains, if they are going to at speed without several stops along the way, you've no Manila Junction, no Limerick Junction to be contending with, then trains are brilliant. Why would you have to go and fly the amount that it's going to cost the environment in the long run? Go for the trains.
I spent a couple of months commuting up to Dublin by train, and I swear to God, I will never do that again. It just... I would rather never go to Dublin again than go by train. Just head-wrecking. And I know some people, my favourite kind of genre of travel content is the kind of people who generally drive somewhere and then every so often they take public transport and they go, you know what? It's actually very good.
Oh, yeah,
I was reading a book and the time went by, but I tell you what, Sandra or Frank, if you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, every morning you use that transport and you go back at 6 o'clock in the evening, your head will be melted. People fighting on the thing. I've got a clip, I think I showed you from a couple of months ago, of a guy who was absolutely out of his mind on weed and another guy absolutely lamped on alcohol, and the two of them fighting right in front of me. And you just go, I just want to go home. I don't want to be attacked violently by some cannabis-wielding nutter. So not to make it too salacious now, to keep it hard facts.
I'm taking the man who smoked a joint over the man who's done a line of coke on the train or shot up a load of heroin and is looking for his next fix.
Yeah, but at least to me, that is my experience.
Always get on in Castlereagh and get off in Castlereagh for coming home. So yeah,
that is my experience of public transport. And again, I think it's one of those things where when you try it the odd time, God, this is all right. But when you do it all the time, you've been up and down, when you do it all the time, time, it is not enjoyable.
Yeah, I hope you have a ticker there, Queevy. He's been up in Dublin. But yeah, those characters, I know they're usually like middle-aged men. They're like, oh, geez, they go up for a Mayo match or something. Like, you know what, Jesus, where would you be going to your destination? That's where you be going.
Yeah, alive.
There's no trolley. There's no trolley there on the train. Only on the Cork to Dublin train. They're slowly reintroducing the trolley. So it'll be about €6 for a cup of tea, I imagine, when it comes back.
Enjoy. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see us doing this because there just isn't the infrastructure at the moment.
And we're an island.
Yeah, but to be fair, our transport plan at the moment does seem to be cut off your nose to spite your face. So who knows?
But at the same time, I'm seeing like increase of Kerry National Airport and International Airport. It is not a nation in and of itself, although sometimes it should be cut off from the rest of us. Because it's too nice, too great. I had a weekend there and it was fantastic.
Have you flown out of Kerry Airport?
I have not. I've driven by
Beautiful airport.
Yeah. Have you
really
actually flown into it?
Really nice. No, I've collected someone from it, but I haven't flown.
All right, okay.
But a lovely
where
airport.
Where are they coming from?
London. London is the main flight.
Okay, and I believe the flight to Dublin as well. But it's in North Kerry. It's like half an hour from Shannon Airport.
Yeah.
And then Shannon Airport's like an hour and a half from Shannon Airport. And then in Donegal, which I think probably is one of the most scenic airports ever. I've never actually laid eyes on it myself. But that should be the one that's getting investment. You know, people in Donegal should be getting something. And
it's incredible to think, as we record this here in Castlebar once had an airport.
That's true.
Galway had an airport, which is now plans to be turned into a film studio.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah, I know. I mean, we can't praise Knock Airport enough on this program. It's just incredible. You leave your house 2 hours from the time of the flight. You have enough time for a pint. You board the flight, and you're over in Liverpool, London, Manchester, Edinburgh within like 4 hours. Yeah,
you can go to Cologne.
So
go to Milan.
That's the big one. Now, one person who did board a flight, she boarded a flight to Morocco, was Una Healy, as she was allegedly involved in a throuple. Now, she has come out against this in recent weeks because this is something that was kind of rumbling on. The photo of Una with David Hay and another woman kind of sparked a lot of media interest late last year, and there was talk of throuple and Una, and of course Una's a massive name, and David Hay is a big name in the UK of his own right, but she has now come out to firmly deny this.
Yeah, I believe so. Back in the headlines. I think this is, to be fair, about the 20th time I've scrolled up and down and past this story. Una Healy involved with David Hay and some other, you rarely mentioned the third party. That's the first time I've heard it actually said out loud, though. Throuple?
Throuple,
Is
yes.
it a throuple or a throuple?
It's a throuple. Don't act like you don't know what it is.
We're one away from having one here now at the moment.
Oh. Every great podcast studio needs a throuple. But yeah, so essentially she kind of went on to explain what happened in the My Therapist Goes to Me podcast. She went on to explain that after meeting David on the dating app Raya, it's for celebrities. It's a celebrity exclusive app. They went up to strike up a relationship. They went on to strike up a relationship, and it was all kind of casual. But at a certain point in time, he divulged his dating philosophy, which seems to be date as much and as often as possible. You know,
it's a bit of a boyo, is he?
He seems to be, but funny enough, and she was kind of laughing throughout, he seems to have a whole philosophy around it, and if you are dating him, you're one of the team. Yeah. So at a certain point in time, she was made aware that there was another woman that he was his ex-girlfriend, but he was still very involved with. And so she went out to Morocco for Christmas because her kids were staying with their dad, who she is separated from. They were staying with her dad. So Christmas, a bit of a lonely time. She goes to Morocco with David. Along comes this other woman, which is where this infamous picture comes from. That has that kind of graced social media. There it is. That was a massive splash in the UK and Ireland. She went on then later to break it off after she felt that
after people back home in Tipperary started talking about it.
Well,
that's what I imagine.
To an extent,
to be honest, they've gotten a lot of legs out of this one.
To an extent, but also I think she just became uncomfortable. It was fun, it was interesting, and then she just became uncomfortable with the situation. But hilariously, when she told David Hay that she was done, he described that as unsubscribing from the team. He said, so you've unsubscribed from the team. He later went on to post more pictures of her, and as the girls in the My Therapist Goes to Me podcast make the point, he seems to want her to resubscribe to the team now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. But, I mean, that's how you know you're successful, when you have a team dedicated to your dating pursuits.
Yeah, well, just hats off to him.
You couldn't have said that more nonchalantly, yeah? Like he's been there, done that, got the T-shirt.
Well, I don't know. David Hay, his personal life, fair play to him. If Una Healy's happy out with it, I'm sure her kids are receiving a relentless amount of bullying. But their father's former,
and that was a point. That was a point she made, that she was very upset, kind of, by like media headlines that were saying like, imagine the kid, think about the kids.
But why? Why would people have to care about her kids? She's the mother of those kids. We're not.
I know, but her point being that they were turning her private life into something that had to do with her kids' private life, and that those were exclusive. And you could kind of see, I mean, I doubt her kids even knew this situation was going on. I think they're quite young.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, look, just stop.
But is it a
public eye?
Do you think a throuple could work? Do you think a throuple could work?
It's just adding more problems into it all, you know.
It's a lot of stress, I will say that.
Three's company.
Three is company, but if you had a team,
three's a crowd. Sorry,
if you had a team, you know, like this guy obviously he must have a WhatsApp group with just like the David Hay team and a load of beautiful women. I don't know.
Well, the sun shines, make hay.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one of the other big stories, kind of, I don't want to say stories, but certainly this clip has been bubbling up online quite a bit, has been this guy. He's from Dublin, it seems. He's from Dublin, and he gives his thoughts on the quality of Irish women. Take a listen.
Especially from Ireland. I don't think there's one bad bitch on Instagram from Ireland. I have never looked on Instagram and said, oh, she's bad as fuck. No, never. This, you can tell that, bro. I can look at it, man. This is how you know.
What the hell is going on with this guy's accent? Firstly, it's like he's watched way too much Martin Lawrence stand-up from the 90s.
It's just universally an embarrassing clip for the poor lad. The accent goes to about 7 different places. I'm gobsmacked that he said he's from Dublin. I thought it was like Limerick or Cork or somewhere.
And even worse still, this guy has 160,000 TikTok followers.
Yeah, but idiots have that many. Idiots have that many billions. Look at that bad baby one from Dr. Phil.
And so he goes on essentially to make this point that he's never saw a beautiful woman or a bad bitch, as he would refer to them, from Ireland, and that's his thesis statement of this argument. Now, bear in mind, Ireland has a population just around 5 million people, so that's 2.5 million women. I think, to be honest with you now, mate, there has to be one out of 2.5 million. Like, those odds kind of stack up in our favour rather than his. But let's just see.
There's no bad bitches in Ireland, but I'm not saying I'm good looking. I'm not. Maybe I'm weird. I am weird. Cool. So girls, don't be.
Well, I think the weirdness has been firmly established.
Yeah.
Yes, but he's like, you can understand that this is a bit of a chess move now in this argument. He's kind of defending his rook. You know, he knows people are going to be attacking him after he attacks them.
In the comment talking about, oh, Kira's okay. When you go on Instagram and the Explore page, you look at a girl, you say, she's from UK, she's from America. How do you know straight away?
Who says that? She's from UK. Primary school children, maybe. She's from the UK, firstly, and secondly, how much time is this guy spending on Instagram exploring random women?
Well, look, you just press the old search button, and you know you don't know who.
Okay, you're on Insight now.
I'm just saying, like, you know, the algorithm it can fork you out.
It has its own. It has a mind of its own.
It doesn't actually.
No, it's exactly. It's tailored.
Exactly what we want.
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
How do you know straight away? Because they fine.
What is that accent change? That is not Martin Lawrence. That's more like Will Smith when he goes really high pitched, I think.
It's proper Big Mama's house stuff. It's crazy. It's insane stuff. I don't know how he's allowed outside the house.
I don't know how he survives outside the house, to be honest with you. Whatever being allowed.
Because they look good. Do you get me? Like, bro, you can be like, nah, that girl's from UK. You know that mistakes, like, that girl's UK. This one's American. This one's Puerto Rico. This one.
This is a game he obviously plays with himself every day. You know, he's got a big map and he pins the women to the different countries. There's no pins, as it seems, on Ireland. I don't know. It's incredible. Is this a real thing, I wonder, or is this all an act?
I say they make fun of him, the rest of the lads who are behind the camera, just like the guy behind the camera here. But they just put him up to it, I think. They just thought, this guy's an idiot, he's a moron, he's mimicking every single thing we say, and he's known for just saying absolute nonsense and tripe. And let's put him on camera and make sure he goes viral. And he's well
But maybe he's the one chess moving us here. Maybe this is a character, you see.
Well, a bit like Una Healy as well. You know, we're talking about it. It's
but
the social media discourse.
I'd have a lot more time for Una Healy now than
Is Una Healy a bad bitch?
Not by. No, I think she's from UK.
She's from UK. She's Irish.
It's never. Oh, that one. Yeah, she lives in Lucan. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one. Ah, Ballymun. Yeah, he's a crack. No.
That's his assessment now.
What's his name there now? We'll give him a shout.
Fair to say he doesn't have a leap card, or it's not getting much use anyway. He's certainly not using it on women going around the place, leaping around. No, I don't think we should name him because. Listen, he might be a nice guy. This could be a character. I don't know the things people will do for fame these days, including sitting in a shed in the west of Ireland talking about other people. And the last story across our desk is, I suppose, it's on a more upbeat note.
Yeah, we like to finish things this way, you know.
And if the last guy was making the point against Ireland, against local, against Irish women, one thing Irish women do love is Oisín Mullin.
How could you not?
Hello. Good morning. Were you on night shifts?
No, go to sleep.
Oh, sorry. No, I rang you up. I was just ringing the rest of them as well.
Such an Irish conversation already. I mean, I don't mean to be too Republicatelli about this, but it's kind of got all the tropes of an Irish conversation. No one really wants to say how they're feeling.
You just woke them up. You woke up.
One is kind of clearly distant and doesn't really want to be on the phone. And the other is kind of immediately... Oisín Mullin is immediately apologising for bothering.
You woke him up.
I'm playing this weekend. I'm making my debut.
Nice.
Massive reaction.
It's a proper like that's.
It's genuine. Reaction. It's heartfelt. Yeah, it's heartfelt. Whereas in America or in UK, it would be way over the top. Oh my gosh, man! And then they would probably have champagne and bottle service and it'd be all. Whereas here, it's a much more low key affair.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So. How are you doing against?
We're playing against GWS. From Sydney.
Sweet, when is it?
Saturday.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm not sure what time it is Irish time. Sorry to wake you up.
No, it's okay.
It's worth it.
Yeah, great news. Oh, so much I did.
Nice, good night. Good morning, go back to sleep. Bye.
I can text you properly.
Yeah, take it, right. Goodbye.
So that's Oisín Mullin.
And he goes on to talk to his sister as well.
He goes on to talk to his sister, and I mean, there's a lot of good vibes around at the moment around Oisín Mullin, and people kind of willing him the best, I suppose, hoping that he can kick on in Australia and really make a name for himself down under.
Yeah, well, he's certainly adapted to life very well down there. He's been well sought after for a long time by his club, Geelong Cats. They're playing at GWS Sydney. I think it's 7:30 Irish time, Saturday morning, as well as the fact that he's had a few pre-season outings and he's earned rave reviews. Usually GA players, when they go over to kick the oval ball, they struggle to adapt. It takes a season or two, but no. Anyone who's seen Oisín Mullin wear the green and red knows that he was always going to adapt a lot quicker than others, so we wish him the best.
Yeah, now they can be very tribal in Australia, so I wonder how long term it's going to play out. I was reading a book there by a guy called Christian O'Connell, who had pretty much the #1 breakfast show in the UK for about 10 years. He was absolutely massive for a point in time, and at a certain point then around 2016, 2017, he decides to move to Melbourne and try and take on Australian radio. And for the first kind of year or two, he was just getting very threatening and abusive text messages into the show, basically fuck off home. And they can be very kind of tribal like that. And often there is a feeling that you're welcome, but you're welcome until your visa expires. Whereas I think, at least we like to think, we take people much more into the Irish fraternity. So we'll see, I suppose, how Oisín, bonds and gels within the team as well.
Yeah, for sure. But all accounts, he seems to be settling in well. He was kind of enticed over there. Initially rejected their call And then a chance meeting after they won the championship over in Australia. They came over to Dingle on holidays. He met them there. And look at him
Like,
now.
why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you go if you're a phenomenally talented footballer? You have the world in front of you. Sorry, but playing GAA football for some lad that drinks 2.5 pints at the weekend, as he praises you one weekend and slates you the next, forget that. Go over to Australia where you're treated like royalty on, I'm sure, very good money. I'm not sure what the cash is like, but I'd imagine it has to be much better than a branded free car. So the lifestyle, you can understand exactly why he'd make the choice.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's a no-brainer. And I think he's going to have a lot of supporters. Geelong Cats are going to have a lot of Mayo supporters and supporters from the wider Irish sporting public as well.
Exactly. And of course, best thing for Oisin Mullen, there's none of those Irish women. There's UK, from women from the UK.
Bad bitches.
Bad bitches, exactly. So with all of that in mind, hopefully Oisin kicks on. We're wishing him the best. Thanks as always for a great paper review, Kevin.
Thank you very much.
You can see Kevin's stuff in the Connacht Telegraph, which is con-tel.ie.
Is that what it is? Oh,
yeah. And you're on Twitter as well?
Yeah, indeed, at Quevin Rowland.
There you go. Fantastic. Thanks so much. Thanks to Kevin, as always, for a great review of the papers. I must say, I'm quite glad that Una Healy has decided to unsubscribe from the team. It just seems like a bizarre scenario David Hay is running. I suppose, listen, if you can do it, fair enough, but doesn't seem like the most conducive for a long-term relationship. I don't know. Haven't tried subscribing to the team yet. Maybe that's my fault. Joining me now is a man who I used to listen to every morning around 8:30 in the morning, trundling to school in a red school bus that I don't think was roadworthy, but he was waking up his warriors of the dawn. Hector O'Huckagon, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
You're bringing me back down memory lane there. My soldiers of the dawn all over the country in those dark recession times, Jack. Those times of hardship for the people of Ireland.
The country was about 15% darker. I mean, not just because it was often winter, but it was quite a gloomy time to be a breakfast morning DJ, I can imagine.
Yeah, I don't know how I came up with the soldiers of the dawn tag, but I knew that once the text machine came on at 7 o'clock in the morning and I played a song like Johnny Cash, or I played something different that sparked something in somebody in the kitchen, or whether they were in a lorry or a truck or on the way to school or whatever they were doing, I wanted to spark a reaction to people. And I got that on that breakfast show for almost 4 years. And I was very proud of the reaction I got from the people who liked what I did on that show. So
it
for
was
you
massive.
to say you were listening.
It was
for you to say you were listening on the way.
You were so good at all these different segments, like I'm even kind of looking back as I do my research, and Second Chance Deb springs to mind. You were really good at kind of going for, I suppose, event TV on radio.
Yeah, we wanted to have segments. I didn't want to sound like anybody else. And I suppose in anything I've tried to do in the last 25 years, I've tried to do my own way, and I've tried to do it my own style, and I've tried to put my own stamp on things. And especially with the television shows or anything, they're all my ideas. But with a radio show, I didn't want to sound like any other radio show, because I feel like a lot of it sounds the same old ding dong. Like, what does radio tell you really? It tells what do presenters tell you really these days in daytime radio? They tell you the time of the day, they tell you what song is coming up, and they tell you when the ads are coming up. And that to me is not radio.
Or what drives me crazy as well, Hector? They'll talk if like Calvin Harris or whoever was the last song playing, they'll say, "Oh, I went to a great gig of Calvin Harris," and then move on. There's even when there's a kernel of a story, it's like, God, I've done my 9 to 5 there. There isn't, I suppose they don't take and run with it as yourself and Tommy and many other people kind of in the podcast sphere seem to have done. The two Johnnies being another example, people who are much more able to tell a story.
I think we're Irish people, and what do? We've been telling stories for thousands of years. I suppose that's what we're good at. But I think the radio stations have to be blamed on this, and the directors of the radio stations and the director of the are putting their stamp. And radio stations are becoming so formulaic now that you're only allowed to play Dua Lipa every 70 minutes, and then you'd play this, and then that comes in. The songs are all organised. Everything seems so planned. It seems so robotic in a way. So there was no way in hell that I would have done a radio show for that long if I didn't have the freedom to create segments like medium-sized town, fairly big story, where we went around the country and local papers, and to get the jingles made from a brilliant guy called Nostril Shorts, who works with the Rubber Bandits. When I rang a guy called Nostril Shorts, and he was working out of his bedroom in Limerick, a genius who went on to do some huge stuff for Joe.ie and all that. He goes under the tag name. His famous one is Daniel O'Donnell, the lad he dubs. Well, I rang this guy called Nostril Shorts and I said, I need jingles. And man, did he make me jingles for Road of the Day, Word of the Day, Medium-Sized Town, the Birth Notices. I mean, the Birth Notices one was one of my proudest thing on a Thursday on that radio show. In the darkest, deepest recession times when the shit was hitting the fan in Ireland, and people were pissed off and people were emigrating, and there was social universal taxes coming in, and everyone was pissed off. I knew that half eight on the Thursday morning, when you heard Elbow, a day like this, when you heard that song, and then we read out the birth notices, the name of the baby, the weight of the baby, the parish of the baby, and the parents of the baby, and by a year into the birth notices, we were getting almost 60, 70, 100 new births of Irish children from all over the world and all over Ireland, celebrating something really positive in the country. And it was just a nice moment. And there was some nice moments on the radio show, and that's what I'm proud of.
Yeah, it strikes me as well, Hector, when I kind of think about a radio show, a breakfast radio show, for many people, it's all consuming. Are you happy that you had the stint a couple of years and then were able to walk away from it, rather than maybe it taking up much more of your life by continuing it on for year after year?
There was a time I couldn't even watch the Champions League, Jack. I'd be in bed at 9 o'clock at night. My young lads were telling me, Dad, come on, sling your hook up that stairs now. Yeah, well, it was like constant jet lag. It's hard to explain when you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, or 5:15, and having the breakfast and driving into Galway every morning for 6, and then getting ready. Breakfast radio, I have to take my hat off to Ian Dempsey, by the way. He's been doing it for 20-something years, and he's been doing it at a very high standard. And Mario and the boys. So, like, to do breakfast radio, you have to be dedicated. I was dedicated for it for a couple of years. It was a great learning curve about live radio, and to be able to run the desk and to feel that there's nothing better than getting a reaction after you say something, or do a segment, or put on some really decent music for once in a blue moon, that you hear something that might, because you got to realize what people are doing in their lives, whether they're putting on the kettle or they're doing a stretch, or they're loading a load of meat out of a butcher's van, or taking a fucking 3-piece couch out of a truck, or whatever they're doing. The radio can catch you, and that's what I think radio should be, or a podcast should be. It should catch your attention, and it should sound well and give you something outside the box. Yeah, and that's what I've tried to do, Jack. I just try to be think outside the box, and it's nice that you were on the way to school listening to the radio show, because you have an awful lot of choice there, but you obviously made the right choice turning on the 2FM.
It used to kill me, because we'd only get 15 or 20 minutes on the bus, and then, and often you would be forward selling some big segment or whatever, and then, especially in those days, there's no on-demand or listen back. I've actually written to the RTE archives, or emailed to ask for yours and Jerry Ryan's archives, but they're not particularly forthcoming on that one. Maybe if we kind of rewind the clock a small bit before that time, you had a storied life all throughout, but I think 16 years old in Trinity is a very interesting jumping off point, because you spent just over a year there and then decided, sod this, it's not for me.
I think the sodding this was a complete, I didn't really say sod to it. I just didn't have a clue what I was doing. You're bang on. I was 16 years of age getting my ID card. I turned 17 on the 17th of August, and I somehow managed to wing my way into Trinity College after doing a Leaving Cert, where I got 5 honours, 5 C's. I don't know what they call it now, Jack. Is it H somethings? I haven't a clue, but I got 5.
H2s, all of that.
I got 70% in 5 honour subjects, and one of those subjects was Latin, and that counted back in the day as a double honour, and it's like something like the double dole or something. It counted as a double honour, and I got into Trinity, and I hadn't a clue. I failed past maths. I got an E in past maths, but somehow managed to get into Irish, early and modern Irish in Trinity. But it was a bit of a blur. It was
Did you
leaving
enjoy
Navan.
Trinity? Because I've spent the last year in Dublin in DCU, and if you come from anywhere outside of Dublin, Dublin can be an adjustment.
Yeah, my older brother Freddie we were heading to Dublin, and we wanted to get out of Navan. We saw the bright lights. We just wanted to get to Dublin because we were mad into music. We were mad into socializing. We were mad into crack. We just wanted to get out of the house and get up to Dublin. We wanted to be our own bosses, and we wanted to go and enjoy the trappings of the big city. And I don't know, I enjoyed it. Of course I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it too much. I enjoyed it so much that I didn't even sit my exams. I hadn't a clue what I was doing, Jack. I was too young, man.
You enjoyed it so much that you ended up putting yourself essentially in kind of solitude for another couple of years. Then afterwards, you moved out to my end of the world, the Aran Islands, and to Inishmaan. Tell me about that. It took a while to kind of acclimatize to the locals, I understand, which isn't atypical.
No, but I had always had a plan. The Irish language was in my life since I was 8 years of age when I went to the Gaeltacht for the first time. So I always had a master plan that I was really into Irish at that stage. I was speaking it fluently. I was working in the summer colleges. I was working for Coláiste na Bhíodhna, the summer courses, the crowd that I worked for. I'd saved a few quid. I was big into, I was big into the language, and I was big into the group of people that I hung around with. They were all Gaelgory, and one of the lads, Sean McRaymond from Waterford, said, let's head off. And, Tommy Tiernan said a really interesting thing to me on the podcast with Larita there about 2 years ago. He said, your mother never stopped your adventures. She always allowed you to have adventures. And that has stuck with me now with my boys. I have a lad he's starting the leaving this year. My mum never stopped me on my adventures. And that is a thing that I think parents can take on board regarding their youngsters, and their, and letting them go and make stories and find stories and go on adventures. And we live in a world now where she had
a huge amount of faith in you as well. I mean, because presumably there wouldn't have been instant contact. You weren't, able to WhatsApp her all the time or anything like that. So you move to an island and you stay in contact, I don't know, by letter or by pigeon or by smoke signal. Yeah. But it's only every so often, and so she has to trust in the intervening months or whatever years that you're doing all right.
Yeah, there was the phone call from the old phone box in the pub in Inishmaan, and then this was 1991. Manchester United beat Barcelona. I'll never forget watching that in a pub in Inishmaan. It took me a couple of months to settle into island life, but it was a beautiful paradise. It was when the sun shone in Inishmaan on a summer's evening, the ripple coming off the old roads, the ripple of heat, and I could see the lights of Galway at night time. I could looking up at the stars, and I could see the shine off the water from a full moon. And I was living in paradise, and I was on an island on the west coast of Ireland where my mum, she knew I was safe, she knew I was well. But the key to that is she never stopped my adventures, and that's something I'm taking on board as a dad. And
were you content in yourself at that time, Hector? Because you're a young man. Like things haven't worked out maybe perfectly. Maybe you thought that Trinity, you'd stick the couple of years, you'd be with your brother. So, are you happy around there? Or?
Like, there's nothing works out perfectly, Jack, in this world, and the leaving cert doesn't define you, and failing college doesn't define you. Not everybody likes to study the leaving and cram it all in and get the best result. And how many people do their leaving cert, go on to the course that they want to go on to the job that they want to get, and are happy ever after? That's a load of bollocks. It doesn't really work like that. So for me, failing, getting to Trinity, failing, having a few quid in the bank after working for Coláiste na Bhíodhna, heading to Inishmaan, these were all steps on my journey with the language. And the backbone of what I've been at and what I've been doing is language. Whether it's going to the Basque Country after that to learn Spanish, and then falling in love with a woman who I met at at the Oireachtas who teaches Spanish from County Clare, where she's a brilliant Spanish speaker, brilliant Spanish teacher. Like, Spanish is a huge part of our lives now, and Irish is a big part of our lives, and language is a big part of our family life. So language to me has been the key to me opening doors in my career. The Irish language has opened all the doors for me. It was like Narnia, going into the back of the wardrobe, and through language and through the adventures of living in the Basque Country, living on Inishmaan, going to Rathcarn, the Gaeltacht, when I was 8 years of age in County Meath. Language to me has been my life. And there's so many other people who are linguists and who are master's degrees and brilliant lecturers in language. I think we can never underestimate the power of language in this world that we live in, and the languages that we speak. And without language, this planet that we live on and the amazing thousands of languages that we have gives us our identity and who we are. And it's the color of every fabric of our life is when you open your mouth and you speak your language. So I think that's the key for me. I never dwelt on it. I never dwelt that I'd failed college or anything like that. I was getting the dole in Inishmaan. I had fresh fish at my door every morning. I was living on an idyllic island in the west coast of Ireland, and I was really happy. My hair was long. I was listening to the Stone Roses. We were having the time of our lives. And now people, I hate this thing when we were living our best life. I don't like that comment. That's a social media comment that has come up recently. And it's become, oh, you're off living your best life. You know, just, you don't need to say that. Just get out and do things that you like.
I asked that kind of maybe along that vein. You know, you talk about social media, and as a young man myself, you're the father to young men. There's a real kind of pressure, I think, that you have to have a Hublot, whatever, 100 grand watch, a lovely car, absolutely yoked. You know, you're on Love Island on a Saturday and you're in Wall Street on the Sunday, and that's kind of the expectation set up. So I think it's very important, your own message, and people, you know, Tommy Tiernan talks about being on the dole in Galway for a number of years. Things like that are maybe more important, that sometimes success is foreshadowed by times that aren't, you know, in Goldman Sachs boardrooms or living the high life. You're not always living the high life, nor should you be expected to.
I think it's one of the bad aspects of social media is that constant suffocation now of Instagram and trying to be like this and looking like this. And I think, like, you know, aspiring to look like the body, the tan, the trappings, the car, the this, the that, the other. It's just, there's a suffocation point with social media at this stage. I mean, aimless flicking for hours and hours and hours, and thousands of programmers behind every time you touch that button, watching your every move. And now we're working into a world of AI and everything where there's so much information out there. I just think, you know, wouldn't it be lovely? Like, we won an under-19 league match last night. We won a 19-8. I'm training these boys since they were 8 years of age, and they're graduating tonight. And you know, when you're in that dressing room or on that side of the pitch, you don't need Wi-Fi. You don't care about Instagram. You don't care about Facebook likes. You don't care about TikTok videos. You're in that dressing room with a bunch of young lads that you've been training on the side of a pitch for years. And there's so much positivity, so much other stuff happening that you'd love them just as, you know. Look at when Silicon Valley created mobile phones, and when Apple came out with their mobile phone, they made it so tactile and so beautiful to create endorphins flowing from the brain. And now they create it, when it's in your hand, it feels lovely. And then when it's in your pocket, it's always there. And then it's always there. And unfortunately, over the last 20 years, it's become such a device where we can't do without it. And unfortunately, you see, I think we're at a junction with social media and all
we
that.
We can't do without it, and I think a lot of people couldn't function without it, couldn't wake up in the morning.
But that's what they planned. That's what they planned, Jack. That's what they planned. They planned it to feel lovely. They planned it to look lovely. They planned it to be beautiful. They planned everything for us to be addicted to it. We're addicted to the mobile phone. And mobile phone is a technology. If you're struck up a mountain or if you're in the middle of the jungle and you haven't got the time, mobile phones is a brilliant device. And unfortunately, the internet was created by adults for adults. Unfortunately, the internet, we'd never thought of the damage the internet could do when it gets to younger eyes and younger ears. And look at it now, man. You know, I came back from Papua New Guinea, where I was traveling there for 4 weeks in the middle of the jungles, 15,000 kilometers from my home last week. I came back 10 days ago, and I see a sickening video. The first video I see is a young boy brutally attacked by a group of school kids in his own class or his own school, coming out of a school in my hometown that had 5 million views in 2 days. And I was sick to the stomach. I was horrified, and I'm fed up with the whole fucking load of shit. It is just, we're living in a world now where everything is filmed, and it's a terrible world. That in that side of it, man, it's just I think we're at suffocation point with all this stuff that's going on, and the video.
There's certainly a verge there, and I think a lot of people, to be fair, maybe are listening to stuff yourself, Tommy. There are other voices emerging which are saying technology, but in moderation, like anything.
Absolutely, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Wi-Fi. Look at Mother Nature, man. When that sun shines, Jack, you're in the west of Ireland. I'm in the west of Ireland. There was a sunset the other night, man. I'm telling you. Man. We're getting back to it. We had a bit of a reset for the pandemic, but we are getting back to it. I like resetting. I love nothing better. But I was resetting. Maybe I was resetting myself on Inishmaan. What a magic place to do it. When the locals didn't talk to me for 3 weeks. But then they knew I spoke Irish. Then a lad asked me to paint his currach. Then he gave me fresh salmon every night, fresh lobster. Then he said there's potatoes up in that field. There's carrots up in that field. I was, it was incredible.
They had taken you.
I was in. I had the key, but Jack, I had the key to the island. I had the key because I could speak the natural language of the island. I could converse with the people of the island. And it's the same when I moved to Bilbao. I didn't speak a word of Spanish, but after 2 or 3 years, I had it. And then people were asking me for directions on the metro going into Bilbao in the mornings. And language, again, has been the key to my career.
One of the languages you speak so brilliantly is the language of horse racing. I mean, this is incredible when you're talking on the podcast. And I must say, you piqued my interest around Cheltenham because I had an understanding of horse racing, but nothing even particularly functional enough to pick a horse, to bet. And I must say, this Cheltenham, Envoy Allen and Rachel Blackmore, what a ride. It was just incredible. Yeah. And it's the best thrill ever.
Listen, Cheltenham is an All-Ireland final. It's an All-Ireland final every day. And I know that piece of audio, when I did an 11-minute piece on the podcast, it's been shared a lot of times when I painted a picture of 10,000 Peaky Blinders at 10 o'clock in the morning drinking pints of Guinness. Tommy was in his element listening to it, Larita. And I know they get it, but Tommy was like a sponge that day because he's never been there. So anyone who's been to an All-Ireland final and walking down Jones's Road that day of outside the stadium knows what it's like, the feeling of the All-Ireland final. And that's what Cheltenham is like. It's one of the greatest sporting events in the world. And I love it. I love my horses, love my horse racing. Again, but to make a show like Only Fools Buy Horses, my own idea, I'm very proud of the TV shows that I came up with and that I got them across the line.
It still stands up. You're able to watch it on YouTube. I don't think it's on the RTÉ player, but I was able to watch all of it on YouTube recently. And you follow this journey of traverse, and you go up to Dublin and you're trying to kind of in the streets of Dublin find a horse. You can't get one there. You go down, you meet different trainers, and eventually you go over to England and you manage to pick one. I think it wasn't on the third day.
The third day of the sales, after about 450 horses through the ring, we bought a horse for 800 guineas. But, it was an adventure. And again, I wanted to do something different regarding horse racing. I wanted people to realise that, yes, there are multi-millionaires involved in horse racing, and a lot of people fly in, the big owners, and they can buy the best horses. But it just showed you that the ordinary man, the simple person, the Joe Soap can buy a horse, can get his own colours, can race the horse, can go to the race meeting. And it was. I'm very proud of that show. Very proud of that show. Only Fools Buy Horses.
And it's still available if people want to go and find it. I think it's available in a couple of different places. And Traverse, it's a fantastic journey. Maybe not the fairy tale kind of, you would have hoped to setting up, but certainly Traverse goes on to win a couple of races. There's a couple of setbacks.
Yeah, we had tragedy when Sean Cleary was killed in Galway 3 weeks after winning on the horse, and it's sad and it's poignant that young lad fell off a horse at high speed in Galway and was kicked and unfortunately passed away while his girlfriend was pregnant with his first baby. And that young lad now has ridden his first winner for Willie Mullins this year. His young boy, who's 19 years of age. I think it was 2003 that happened, yeah. And then he's had his first winner for Willie Mullins. So
the Cleary family he's been welcomed back into the fraternity and kind of supported throughout.
Absolutely.
The last Cleary probably family, note to hit on, Hector, is your travels. You mentioned Papua New Guinea there, but I was thinking, for a person like myself, if you were to devise a travel itinerary, if you were given a couple of grand and you were to be told, you're a travel agent for this guy, where are you going to send him? Not only to soak up the sun, the sights, a couple of beautiful women maybe even, but to expand the mind, to broaden your horizons. Is there a place you'd send somebody of 20 years of age? Okay then, how much are we in the budget here, Jack? I'll give you 4 grand. So you're 20 years of age, you're 4 grand, and Jack, do you want to push the boundaries here? Yeah, of course.
Okay. Andy, you have no problem slumming it a little bit and
No,
not staying in
no.
nice places. And you have no problem if there's no Wi-Fi.
No, that's all right. Send
you've
a
no
letter
problem
to
if
my
you have
mother or something.
Like the old postcard we used to send, and your mother put it on top of the television. That was a real. My mother was from Tuam. She loved that. You know, when you're in the Canaries, you'd see the
They
same
still
postcard
love
on
it.
top of the telly. Oh, they still love that. Or it's in the kitchen beside the plants on the windowsill. Right, Jack, 4 grand, 20 years of age. I would say to you, I would send you to South America to travel in a whole circle around South America. You could start off in Venezuela, down into French Guiana, down into Amazonas, the top up near Manaus, down into Rio de Janeiro. You could party away there, and then you could head down over Paraguay, Uruguay, into Buenos Aires, up through Santiago, Chile, up into the Atacama Desert, the driest place on earth, up into the highest city in the world, La Paz, Bolivia, that sparkles like a jewel in the sky, and you get altitude sickness the minute you arrive at the airport. Then you will come down to the beautiful, calmer tropical areas of Colombia, and then you'd fly home on an Aer Lingus flight. You'd have a chicken and stuffing sandwich, a packet of potato, cup of tea, and after 6 months traveling around South America, you'd be back in the west of Ireland.
Yeah, and Johnny McHale's a local pub here with a pint, retelling every single story.
Nice. South America, man. South America, Central America is beautiful. I can't describe to you what Africa is like. I mean, first time I went to Africa, I thought, oh my God, we're going to be ambushed. We're going to be kidnapped. This is going to be cat. We're going to be what happens? Have we security? What are we going to do? Are you telling me we're in the jungle? Okay. So we're traveling through Ethiopia, right? Famine, Ethiopia. Oh my God. And when I got to Ethiopia to me is one of the most amazing countries in the world. Southern Ethiopia is like a Pocahontas Avatar movie with waterfalls and rivers and lush green forest and jungle. I mean, everything we think of that. We think of Ethiopia, we think Band-Aid and famine. And you know, again, that's what our minds are programmed to be. There's some amazing places in the world. Africa is an amazing continent.
Africa intrigues me because I had a taxi driver who was absolutely adamant that you had to explore Kenya and other parts of Africa.
Amazing.
And again, you just think to yourself, security, all of that. But I suppose if you do it right, I mean, you went there and you're still alive.
I'm still alive. I'm still traveling the world with the same two boys for 22 years. But when people say, Hector, where's the most dangerous country in the world you've been? I said, sometimes you need to be watching yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning outside the local chipper in your own town. I mean, you know, you have to, you know, this is, you know, don't trust Google and don't trust TripAdvisor. Trust yourself. You know, if you Google Papua New Guinea, what'll come up? They'll say, oh, man kidnapped, Australian philanthropist kidnapped, pilot kidnapped in northern Papua New Guinea, Australian archaeologist kidnapped by tribe, kidnapped. Streets of Port Moresby, the capital, you need security. I'm just after breaking that reputation and breaking that myth. They're an amazing people. Yes, you have to be careful, but in any major city, you have to be careful. But I walked the streets of Papua New Guinea and I met these people. And so everything Google tells you is not true. And on this new series on TG Ceathair, we travel all the way through Southeast Asia and down deep into the South Pacific. And I guarantee you, we've got an amazing show coming from Papua New Guinea, where I was the only white man there. I was the only tourist there with the boys. There's no tourists going there. And we had an amazing show with amazing people. And that's what floats my boat and gets me excited about a travel show that we're doing for 23 years. We're still trying to push the boundaries.
Fantastic stuff. And that presumably will be coming to a television screen near us in the next couple of months.
It'll be coming TG Ceathair with the power of the TG Ceathair transmitter in Ballynahown and Connemara. We're going to broadcast it all over Ireland, but then on the player, which is beautiful because we have so many people watching it from all over the world. You click on the player, it'll be live on the player the minute it broadcasts. So tgceathair.ie for that. But I'm happy that my show exists in the mighty parish of TG Ceathair, and people have grown up with the show in the parish of TG Ceathair.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Hector. It's been enthralling, as you say. Papua New Guinea on the way, and who knows, maybe I'll explore South America and get back to you.
Jack, best of luck with the podcast, the Jack McDonald Show. You need to add a hint of green to the chipboard behind you and get the real green and red Mayo. There's a nice red hue coming off that uplight, a little bit of green coming in underneath your left shoulder, and you would have it nailed.
I'll pass it on to my lighting guy. Thanks so much, Hector.
Jack, go to Mila Margaret. Mass more.
Thanks again to Hector for being a great sport and taking the time out. He said to me at the end, God, that was quick and painless. So who knows, maybe we'll see Hector around these parts in another while. Fantastic to chat to him. A great full circle moment, I think, as well, when you go from listening to somebody on the radio to actually being able to speak to them. And I'm really glad we got to speak about that 2FM show specifically, because essentially Hector was trying to wake up a nation who just wanted to stay in bed. So really, really interesting. And thanks as always to Hector. Well, that's it from me. Thanks as always for listening, for watching, subscribing, and we'll see you next week.